talked in yesterday's video about bringing joy to the channel, about making it a bit more fun and being a bit more excited about the shoes that are coming down the line. And then right the next day along comes one of my all-time favourite lines, the Futurecraft 4D line at Adidas. Now I'm going to go in reverse order for this one. We had the 2020 4D runs, and hopefully I'll be able to drag out of the archives one of those shoes. They're kind of a simple shoe, very simple uppers, but still with that 3D printed midsole on there. And before that, the Alpha Edge in 2018, but it all started in 2017 with the original Futurecrafts. And for me, it all started in Grailsville with these guys right here, the Daniel Arshams. They're an absolutely beautiful shoe. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this is a shoe I will look for the rest of my life. And it's just too expensive. There's just no way I could afford to buy a shoe like that, but I am absolutely in love with it. And the first sort of 4D, Futurecraft shoes, they came with that kind of lime green default color in the midsole, and it's the midsole that's the big talking point of this, the latest iteration in the line. I suppose it's the fourth, right? The original 4D Futurecraft, then the Alpha Edge, then the 4D runs, and now here we are with these 4D forwards, taking it forward. And that's kind of a play on words because they're taking the line forward, but they're also bringing in some technology that will help actually physically push your foot forward and put more of the energy you spend running actually getting yourself going forward. So it's a whole technological advance as much as it is a sort of story or branding advance for the 4D forward. And that's what we're going to get in today. We're going to have a look at this shoe. I'm going to take it apart for you guys almost literally because there's a great picture of the whole shoe completely deconstructed with the outsole, the midsole and the upper all kind of like down to their very basic constituent parts. And that's a great way to look at the shoe, which will also take us into the 100% recyclable shoes at the Adidas line, and then the hits on it, what's the updates as far as the line goes, a little bit of chat about pasta, because when it comes to these 3D printed midsoles you can't not look at them and think pasta, and then the other hits on the shoe. So without further ado, let's get into this and talk about the upcoming release on May the 15th of the Adidas 4D Forward. This is the Tokyo About a 23 Secret channel. Tokyo About a 23 Secret channelです。毎日アップするので、毎日見てください。And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And in Spotlight today, as I said already, it's the May the 15th drop of the latest iteration, the latest silhouette in the Futurecraft line. So this isn't just another colorway, it's an actual rethink of the silhouette. And there are some very commonalities, very similarities between all of the shoes. Like I said, this is the fourth silhouette to come from the Futurecraft 4D line, the 3D printed midsole line. And they look very similar if you put them up side by side by side. But then when you get to the details of it, the structure, the construction, the materials, that kind of stuff, you realize there's a bit more going on with the shoes. And that's what we're going to get today, is to take it apart and look at these guys, the solar reds they're calling them. And there's some kind of weird backstory going on here, and it really catches my eye because I'm here in Tokyo, Japan. And what they're talking about is this will be the first shoe out there, limited run. It won't be as widely general release available, the solar reds, because what will happen is a more wide general release will come in August. Here we are in May, first release of Solar Reds. August is when they're talking about the general release of the line. And between those two dates, they're talking about a special Japan pack or Japan release that I haven't heard a thing about, but I'm super excited about it being right here in Japan, because that could very well play into my hands and be a really big plus if I can get my hands on one of them, a pair of shoes before they hit the general release market, because I think this is an amazing line. I absolutely love what Adidas have done over the last few years, especially with the Boost technology and the 3D printed midsole, or the 4D Futurecraft technology. They're two of my favorite midsoles, and it's just an incredible step forward in technology for sneakers in general, not just for Adidas. So, but the big thing about the shoe, we're going to go to the first major point on the shoe, and then we'll get to the other stuff in there. And the major step forward in the shoe is all about that midsole. Yes, it's in that 3D printed material. Yes, it's 4D Futurecraft. But the big deal is it's the first time that I've seen them change the the actual physical structure of the midsole. And hopefully I'll be able to bring up one of the previous shoes, and you can see it's got a very simple lattice effect on there and a very consistent shape, especially when you think about the space between the spines in the midsole. But if we flip that out to today's shoe, you can see there's a big change in the structure of that midsole there. Now, what I'm going for, my metaphor, the way I'm looking at it is that the previous 3 iterations of the 3D printed midsoles were spaghetti, very straight lined sort of structure and design and dimensions in there. But then what we've got today is macaroni. That's where I'm going with my kind of thing. And it's an unfair comparison, and Adidas won't thank me for it, because pasta is a very brittle thing that breaks very easily. And basically what we've got here is a very soft, malleable thing that gives you that spring and that comfort. And not only that, they're talking about something along the lines of 23% more energy in a forward motion. I don't know what they're talking about, but basically these are supposed to be a shoe for runners, and that the change to the midsole and change to the structure of the midsole is designed to present more of that force going forward in the shoe. So you're getting a lot more forward motion out of your each footstep, each landfall in the shoe. So for me, it is a big deal. So the technology's there, but I just don't know that much about it. I'm more interested in the shoes and what they look like and just how cool they are, not in their technology as far as the runner side of things go. To be honest, I'd be very surprised to see somebody doing running in these, because they just don't look like a runner's shoe. They look like a crossover to the fashion world with that 3D printed midsole. So, but I might be wrong on that. Maybe people are out there sporting these guys when they're running marathons or short distance or long distance or mid distance. I do not know. But for me, it's just a great looking shoe, and that redesign on the midsole, 3D printed midsole, is a first time that I've seen it with these larger spaces in there, and that's all about that design to get more of the energy going forward from your stride with your running. So with that being said, let's get into the rest of the shoe and look at the whole thing. So we'll go to that deconstructed picture that I talked about, and the real thing to look at here isn't actually the 2 major points left and right, which are the midsole and the outsole. You can see the midsole unit with that kind of spine and 3D printed effect, but then also the outsole in orange there with the rubbers. They're great to look at. It's great to see them removed from the rest of the shoe like this. But then what you see between them is the upper, and this is what reminds me of those 100% recyclable shoes that they have at Adidas, because that whole, to me, the upper, it shouldn't appear as one unit. It should be different sections. If you think about a leather shoe being stitched together with different parts to the leather shoe, but when you look at it this way with that, I think it's Prime Knit Plus, if I remember rightly, that you can see that it's a very single unit. Now it would wrap around the back, I should say, and be stitched together to create that the finished effect. So there is kind of one piece missing that it isn't shown here, that point where it would stitch together. But basically it's a single unit upper with just that one sort of knit running through the whole shoe. And again, this is a great place to zoom in on the lacing system to see one of the big details on this. These are the solar reds, and it comes out most in the upper with those lace loops on the lacing system. Instead of having eyelets, it has the loops to hold that all together to keep the laces where you want them to be. So great hit up there. But the rest of it is, I think they call it core black for that upper, a very black upper in that Prime Knit Plus. And there are recyclable materials going on in here, especially in the midsole materials and also in that upper materials, the Prime Knit Plus, that gives us a bit more sustainability, which is a big talking point in sneakers these days. So it's good to see Adidas keeping that going forward. And the final thing I want to do is really go into that outsole and have a closer up look than that deconstructed one and show you it right here, and you get an idea of what's going on there, especially in that solar red. It reminds me of a pair of NMD R2s that I own that have a solar red outsole that isn't quite as beautiful as this. It's a much more sleek looking skin on the outsole side of the shoe, rather than just being the kind of, it's not the NMD R2s, it looks a bit like the Continental outsoles that you get that look through to the boost on the midsole, whereas these guys, it's a completely solid outsole in that rubber that runs the front full length of the shoe in that solar red. So it's a great look to finish off the bottom half of the shoe. So back out looking at the whole thing, absolutely love it. Can't believe that this is coming for us. I'm so thrilled to see the 4D line come forward and take an evolutionary step forward, because it's a great line. I really appreciate it. The prices were coming down actually, and that's something that I didn't look into, but we'd have to look at the price point on these guys. But the prices were coming down to around about $200 or less, which is quite cheap for the Futurecraft line, because they were well over $300 when they first hit the market. But I don't know about these guys. Maybe being a new silhouette, the price is going to go back up a little bit again. But it's a great looking shoe, great looking start to what could be a really big addition to the Futurecraft line at Adidas. And with that being said, it's time for me to get off and finish up this video. I don't know if you could hear it all the way throughout it, but one of my dogs has been like grumbling away in the corner over there. I don't know if you heard some little whimpers from her. Well, she was grumbling because she couldn't get through the house because the door's locked. She's come back now and is looking at me all like pleadingly, can I go play next door? So I'm going to go take care of her, finish up this video. Thank you guys for checking out the content, and I'll just do the thing I do at the end of every single video, which is remind you that I do this every single day, including hanging out with my dogs. And because of that, that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.